Now, the last one I want to mention is one of those things we do need to get on top of, and that's EndNote. So I'm just going to find it again. Here we go. EndNote. Ding. Now, how do I get that to fit on the screen? Not quite. Okay. Let's see if I can push it in. Okay. EndNote is one of those things that students either love or they hate. Whether they love it or hate it depends on whether they've got on top of it or not, or whether they feel that EndNote is on top of them and strangling them. Okay? EndNote is basically a bibliographic manager. It'll look after the information you need to create bibliographies, footnotes and endnotes. Okay? But it's become much more than that. So, for instance, as you can see even on the screen there, it just happens that the last time I was here, I was looking at a document by Cecilia Meyer, and as you can see, I've not only got a reference to the document that, down here will give me the, I can just, okay, down here it'll tell me exactly, if I can just make this bigger, no, it's not going to work in this format. Okay, not every app allows you to zoom it. But down the bottom it's showing me what it would look like in footnote of different sorts. So that's the traditional Chicago 16 footnote, and that's the APA style of footnotes. It'll tell me how the footnote's going to look if I use that. But over here are the pages of the PDF for that particular article. And increasingly these sort of tools allow you not just to manage the bibliographic details, but actually to have the PDFs inside the file. So no matter where I am, where I'm working, okay, I've got these PDFs with me while I'm working. Like I'm working on the coin database from Bethsaida, so I need to have access wherever I am, 24/7 more or less, to the PDFs, to the reports, to the documents which are part of my research. And I've got them there. I can look at them, I can print them off, whatever, but then as I quote them, EndNote will grab them and insert them at the appropriate place, depending whether I've chosen to write that essay, that report, in APA format or Chicago format. Okay. Now, EndNote is very powerful. It's also clunky in some ways, in that there are still some things you've just got to, as you get to know the tool, you find the workarounds to make sure that you're putting the information in such a way it's going to come out accurately and appropriately for you. So for instance, when you're looking at an actual entry, okay, one of the things I've learned to do is not to put a full stop at the end of the title. It'll put one in if it's needed for your particular format. But if you put it in there, you'll get two of them if the format requires a period, a full stop. Okay, I've learned not to sort of capitalize. In fact, that really shouldn't be a capital there. I've only learned some of these tricks as I go along. Okay, so appendix to chapter 1, it just needs a capital at the beginning of the line, and then after the colon, the first word needs a capital. So unless it's, say, a proper noun, don't capitalize it. Okay, so Bible is capitalized, that's a proper noun. Okay, Israel is capitalized, Australia is capitalized, diocese is not capitalized. And then depending on the format you're choosing for the output, the software will appropriately choose the words to be capitalized or leave everything in lowercase if it's APA. All right. So the key thing is to make sure the data you're putting into your records in EndNote is complete and accurate, like every word spelt correctly, that kind of thing. Okay. And that you have all the appropriate fields that you need for your reference, have an entry in them. So place and publisher and so on. Now, I'm one of those people who likes to include the state after the city of the publication. Well, there isn't a field for that, so I just put it in where it's got place published. I'll put Kirksville, comma, MO, Missouri, I presume. So I'll make sure, so I've learned where to put in those sort of abbreviations. Similarly, down here in pages, which you won't be able to see all that well on the screen up here, this is one that's it's an article or a chapter in a book, but the book is one of a series. So it's volume 1, pages 53 to 63. I've learned to put 1 comma space in front of the page number. Otherwise the volume number won't show up where I need it to be. Okay, so just little tricks like that as you go along. You can add different labels. You can add in, obviously that's the file itself. You can add in ISBN if you want that sort of information. If there's an abstract about an article or a book chapter, which I don't have in this case, but you can copy that in somewhere here. There's abstract, which I can't see at the moment. So you put in the information that's going to help you decide later on whether this is something worth reading. You can even put in extra notes, sort of thing you might otherwise put in EndNote. You can actually make some notes for yourself about that particular resource and include that in EndNote. So when you come back and look at that article, you say, oh, that's right, I read that article because it's particularly good on this particular issue. So you've got a little note there to remind you about that. Okay, it's a tool that's quite powerful, but it does require you to get on top of it, and it has a couple, as I've said, a couple of little quirky things that you just need to work out how to manage. And the best way to learn that, to do that, is just to talk to other people in the class, talk to the lecturer, and get advice. Yes, there are online tutorials. Yes, you can watch YouTube videos, but the best way to learn is to make your own mistakes and not get too frustrated with yourself.
And where would we get EndNote from?
Okay, those of you who are enrolled as students of Charles Sturt University, you can download EndNote free of charge from the university website. So you go onto the website, you go to library, okay, you go to Research and Teaching Support, a pop-down menu. One of those is EndNote. Okay, now somewhere along this process, when you go to download it, it will ask you to log in so it knows you really are a Charles Sturt student or staff member. Otherwise anybody in the world could come along and, thank you, download the software. Okay, and of course you choose the version which works on your computer, whether it be a Windows machine or a Mac machine. So you choose the version of EndNote for your machine. And there are also some extra tools there in terms of training videos and some frequently asked questions and so on. The main thing to watch, in my experience, is that every time Microsoft Word brings out an update to Microsoft Office and Microsoft Word, that EndNote is out of sync for a little while. And then gradually EndNote catches up. And then both the Mac and the Windows version eventually catch up. Everything's sweet. And then EndNote does something, or Microsoft does something that throws it out of sync for a bit. So that's just part of the, welcome to the real world of technology. There are various ways of using EndNote online and getting EndNote on your iPad or whatever. That probably requires you to subscribe and buy your own copy. And I've ended up doing that because I didn't want... The version you get from Charles Sturt is usually the version before the current one. Okay, so I prefer to have the current version so it'll work with the latest version of Microsoft Office. So you've just got to manage those sort of compatibility issues. And depending how old your version of Microsoft Office is, you'll have to choose the version of EndNote that is compatible with your computer's Microsoft Office. You can also use it with Pages, but you don't get full functionality from EndNote and Pages in the way that you do with Microsoft Office. You can also use it with OpenOffice, but again, you don't get quite the same updating cycle because that's freeware. It takes a while for the community to make the changes that are needed. Okay, so critical software. You really can't get by these days without email, but you've got to learn how to manage it and control it. We need web browsing because most of our stuff is done online, and increasingly the information we need and even the books we're reading are online documents, which we'll read from our tablet or computer. You need some kind of note-taking and storage facility, whether that be Evernote or OneNote or Notability or one of the other alternatives, but you'll need some good note-taking software. You will need a bibliographic manager like EndNote, and EndNote is probably the most significant professional option. There are a couple of others, but EndNote is provided free of charge by the uni, and so it's probably the one to go with. And then just briefly a final word, at some stage in the next 6 to 12 months you're probably going to be thinking about buying some appropriate Bible software. You'll either be looking at Accordance or Logos or BibleWorks. In the library machines upstairs we have Accordance on the iMac, and we have BibleWorks on a couple of the PCs. I tend to use BibleWorks and encourage people, I tend to use Accordance and encourage people to do that. I won't say much more about it because we're having a training seminar on Saturday the 16th of May where the Australian trainer for Accordance Bible software will be up for the weekend, and he will actually run programs to introduce people to making effective use of that Bible software. And so given the time, I'm not going to say any more about that, but there's information on the MEC website about choosing Bible software, and so by all means go and have a look at that. I'll just remind you where it is. So under the St. Francis College section, choosing Bible software. Okay, there's a link there that runs through some of the main things to look at when you're looking at Bible software, and it mentions the 3 programs that you're most likely to be looking at: Accordance Bible software, BibleWorks or Logos. These are all paid programs. There are free off the internet programs, which obviously don't have as much capacity as the more professional ones. But even the free off the internet software is often quite good in terms of parsing the original Greek and Hebrew and so on. So there are lots of free tools out there, but have a look at that page on the college website if you just want to get a bit of a heads up in terms of Bible software. Make a note in your diaries that Saturday the 16th of May is when Ken Simpson will be here to do a sort of training seminar on Accordance. Okay, that's filled up our time, so I'll hand back to Kathy, but I guess the headline message is there's fantastic information technology tools available now. The challenge is to pick the 3 or 4 things we really want to use and get on top of, and then become very comfortable using those tools so they're not stress factors but simply helpful tools for doing the work we want to do. Okay, thanks Kathy.
Thanks.